Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to this week's card. Today I'm using the Stampin' Up! From the Herd stamp set again. I'm just going to mask everything except for this llama. And then I'm using the Slang Gang set by Paper Smooches. It's got the cutest sentiments in it. I've got this Mama Elephant Landscape Trio set of border dies. And then I've got several pieces of cardstock. I'm going to be making a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch square card. So this is my card base out of Neenah Solar White. I'm also using some wild wasabi and some saffron as well as crumb cake. All right, now I'm measuring 1 3/8 from the right and 5/8 from the top. And at that point, I figured out that that's the best spot for the tip of the llama's ear to be. So after I've got that marked, I'm going to take my surgical tape and mask off all the pieces of the stamp that I don't want. And I'm going to put a couple of layers on there to make sure that I don't get ink anywhere else. I'm going to take some Memento Tuxedo Black ink and ink up just my llama. And I'm using Memento because I'm going to be using Copic markers. And then I'll peel away the surgical tape. And then I'll line up that ear with the mark that I made and stamp it right down. And then I have just the llama. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. It's some Copic coloring with E40, 43, and 44. I'm going to be starting off with the E44, and now I'm working on the E43. And I'll put E43 on the right hand side as well. So I'm just using the E44 on the left side. I'm filling in the middle with the E40 and blending it all together. And I'm just going to work on this piece by piece. And then I'll do the top little area there, some 44. And then just a spot of each. And where his ears are going in, that's where I'm going to put the 44 because that's where the shadow is going to be. And then I'll blend it out with the 43 and then finally the 40. Now here's where I make it look fluffy. I'm going to take the Zero colorless blender and I'm just going to dot. I'm just going to create a bunch of dots. And at first you won't see them. But try not to get impatient because if you keep marking up the areas that you think it's not doing anything to, you're just going to get a lot more color loss. So you want to be patient, and you'll notice that over time, like in 30 seconds or something like that, you'll see the color really start to pull away from where you made that dot. So you can kind of already start to see where I'm getting some dots in there. Now the second part of this is after I do that with the colorless blender, I'm going to go in with my E40. I'm going to do the same exact thing, and just somehow this makes it look even better, I guess because it pushed the color away with the Zero, but then I added a little bit of the light color back in, so it really makes his fur look fluffy. And this is just a worn lipstick distress marker, and I'm just going to color in his mouth with it. And now I'm going to draw some lines around the outside. I'm just going to use a ruler and a Copic liner. This is the 0.3 liner. And I'm just going to draw lines across 3 edges that are going to be showing. Now's the time for my sentiment. I'm using some VersaFine Black Onyx ink. It's my favorite ink for clear stamps. And put that right above his head. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a scratch sheet of paper, and this is how I'm going to line up my Landscape Trio dies. I'm going to mark the top corners so I always have it in the right spot every time. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm going to take my first stitched die here, and I'm going to mark it where I want it to go so that it's right there underneath the llama. So because I marked it with a pencil, I can now replace that 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 white base with the wild wasabi. And I'll put it exactly where I wanted it based on my marks from before, and then I'm just going to hold that in place and run it through the Big Shot. Alright, now when I come back and put it on top of my panel, I'm going to notice that I did not account for the gap between the actual die cut blade and the edge of the die. So I have this gap at the bottom. And so it's no big deal. I'm just going to take my Copic liner and I'm going to extend his outline just a little bit, and nobody's going to notice. And I'll just fill it in with the Copic markers, and it's not going to really make any big difference at all. But I'm going to account for that in future cuts. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to my card panel with my ATG. Now what I'm going to do next is divide this up into 3 parts because I want all 3 of these pieces to be equidistant. So I'm going to mark it on the left side, and then I'll also mark it on the right side. Alright, now once I've got that figured out, I'm going to take my die, and you'll see I'm measuring that it's 1/16 of an inch from the die edge to the die cut. And so I'm going to raise my marks 1/16 of an inch. And now I'm going to make the cut line for my So Saffron piece. I'm going to figure out where I want it to be placed, and then I'll draw it on my scratch sheet, and then I'll place my So Saffron piece on top, and then I'll place the die where I marked it, and then I'll use some surgical tape to hold it in place, and then when I get back it should be perfectly lined. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that one with my ATG. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process again, finally with the crumb cake cardstock. Okay, now those lines that I've started on my first card panel on the white, I'm going to extend those down through the rest of these layers. It's pretty easy to do. And then straight across the bottom with a ruler. Now I'm going to work on the inside. Now I had 2 sentiments that I wanted to combine. One said, "You're the bomb," and I'm going to just stamp "your." And so I'm masking out just like I did with the From the Herd stamp with some surgical tape. I'm going to ink it up with some Versified Black Onyx. I'll peel off my tape, and then I'll have the part of the sentiment that I want. I'm going to stamp it right there in the middle, and then I'll take Freakin' Great, and I'll stamp that right underneath. And then finally I'm going to take my front card panel and I'll adhere it to the front with the ATG. And that's the card for today. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.